city tour, but really it was just the
Yeah.
speaking engagements that, you know, somebody would hire me and I would just be like, well, you know, the day
Well,
before, because they usually have you come like the day before.
buzz, you know?
Yes.
That's right.
It was great,
Work
honestly.
with what you got.
Yeah.
So let's dial in. You guys ready?
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited.
Ready.
Yeah. Hi guys, welcome. Hi everyone.
Ooh, they're flooding in.
Yeah, people are coming in. We're gonna get started in a second. Just let everyone have a chance to get registered and join us. But thanks for being here. Yeah.
This is my favorite part of Zooms, is the beginning when you see all the people getting on. Even though I can't actually see them, I'm like, people are here.
Ooh, more.
You remember people when we used to
favorite
be
is the chat box. I literally at the end of every event go through and like read all of the comments and everything. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, while we wait for a few more people to join us, just want to say thank you guys for being here tonight. I am Megan, the founder of MoxxieMade. So I wanted to quickly introduce our speakers, have them give you a wave, and then I'll tell you a bit more about MoxxieMade, and then we'll head into the discussion. So we have Allegra of Factora with us tonight. Thanks for being here. We have Tiffany of the Budgetnista. Yay, thanks Tiffany. And then we have Marsha of the Finance Bar. So thank you guys so much
for having us.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I know we have some familiar folks and then also a bunch of new women joining us tonight. MoxxieMade's mission is to create intentional spaces where women can have accessibility to holistic mentorship and a space to form meaningful connections. And really our belief is that through mentorship and through a supportive community, it invigorates courageousness, which is what you need to really go after those really expansive goals. 88% of women would like a mentor, but less than half of them feel like they have one. And I had a moment last week with a mentor of mine where I was really reminded why mentorship is such a key component of our mission. And it's because mentors provide you perspective, and perspective only comes from experience. And mentors can provide you, you know, that realization that we're all in this together, and likewise that potential you see in them, you have in yourself. So thank you guys for being here tonight. It's going to be a special evening. So I know some of you have been to our digital events before. For those of you that haven't, all of our attendees, your mics and video will be off for the night, but we definitely want you guys to participate. You guys are, you know, community is what MoxxieMade is all about. And so what I'd love to do to kick things off is have everyone go down into the chat functionality at the bottom of the screen and have you guys write in, you know, make sure it's set to everyone where you're joining us from. We have nearly 100 women here, which is really exciting. Tucson, Arizona, I see Vancouver, Washington, DC, Brooklyn is in the house, that's where I used to live, New York City, New Jersey, Chicago, LA, some more New Jersey, Florida, NYC, Baltimore. We have Austin, which is where Allegra and I are at right now. South Carolina, more Austin, New York, Rhode Island, love it. Virginia, Georgia. Wow, so exciting. Thank you guys for being here tonight. So, you know, when we asked our community a few weeks back, how can we serve you guys? You know, what are tools and resources that you need right now? What we kept hearing again and again was money. And so I'd love for us to kind of get a sense of what your financial kind of situation is right now. So I'm going to be launching a poll that you guys should be able to kind of see on your screen, and let us know which one of these 3 situations, you know, best describes your kind of your financial picture at the moment. We'll give everyone just another, you know, 10 seconds or so to answer. So it looks like about half of us, you know, your finances are in a good steady place, which is great, but you just want to be more mindful about money management. And then the other half of us, you know, your finances have taken a hit, and really wanting resources to kind of how to be more proactive and create better safeguards right now. So before we kick off the discussion, the one last question I wanted to ask everyone, and just, you know, do it in the chat box, is what is one feeling or emotion that describes your feeling towards money at the moment? So are you feeling fear? I see helplessness, scarcity, anxiety. Definitely hear you. Lack, not having enough, confusion, frustration, stress, curiosity, uncertainty. Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like we're in this moment where, you know, all of our finances in some way, whether it's just the collective economy or our individual situations, are rapidly changing. You know, will it be okay? Wanting empowerment. Yeah. So, you know, excited to dive deep into, you know, both the money mindset piece, which is such a key component to your financial picture, and then also just really tactical advice of like, how can we navigate this time? So I'd love to officially introduce our amazing panelists. Hi, ladies. Thank you guys for being here tonight. To get started, let's have you guys go around, introduce yourselves, tell us what you're drinking. I know we wanted to make it a girls' night. Tiffany has a really good drink for us.
So I'll start. My name is Tiffany Aliche. I'm much better known as the Budgetnista, and I specialize in teaching women how to live richer lives. That's to use their finances as a tool to make their lives better. And so I thought I was gonna, so I had this like ugly canteen. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna pour it into a cup and make it fancy. And I forgot I had Gatorade and seltzer water in a cup. So now I've got a blue drink. And so I'm drinking Gatorade and seltzer water.
Blue Smurf.
Yeah, it's the blue Smurf, aka the blue Smurf.
Cool. How about you, Allegra?
Hi, everyone. My name is Allegra Moet Brantly. I'm joining from Austin, and I'm the founder of a company called Factora. It is an online course and community for women who want to build wealth. And I am drinking just the seltzer water, but I jammed a whole lemon in here. And now it's like a big clob at the top. And it's dripping all over me. But I will be having a beer at the end of this because I want it to be sharp for you.
Yeah.
Keep it real, Allegra.
Here. And then how about you, Marsha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marsha Barnes. I am joining you from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the founder of the Finance Bar, where I am super committed and obsessed somewhat of helping women and couples move from financially existing to financially thriving. And I'm super excited to talk about this topic tonight. And I am drinking some juice that's probably old from last week, but it was in the fridge and I grabbed it. It's like strawberry and grapefruit.
You got to make the most of those groceries, right?
Right. You got that right.
Guys, thanks for being here. So to get started, before we move more into kind of the tactical advice, I really want to take a moment to talk about money mindset. And, you know, a big belief of mine is that inward alignment breeds, you know, outward results. And that's why at MoxxieMade, we approach mentorship holistically, you know, looking at professional development, but also alongside personal and spiritual development. So finance, it's the same. You know, it's as much of an inside job as it is being financially literate. And so, Tiffany, this one's for you. I know that you have worked with so many women and also have experienced this yourself. And so many of us have these subconscious beliefs and narratives around money that really do impact our behavior. And do you have any kind of common themes or beliefs that you hear from women kind of over and over again?
Absolutely. I think one of the most common themes for people in general is I don't have it. I don't have enough. And so that's something that people will tell themselves when, especially I find when it's something that really enhances their life. When it's time to do a Target run, you figure it out, right? And when it's time to pay a bill, you somehow figure it out. But if it's something truly enhancing, it's I don't have it or I don't have enough. And for women, the nuance is almost I don't deserve it, which is really heartbreaking. So for women, it's like, that's the underlying of the I don't have is what they're really saying is I don't deserve it. Well, I have to make sure the kids and the hubby and the friend and this one, and somehow I am not deserving of being prioritized when it comes to my finances too. So I would say that's the biggest underlying kind of like message that women tend to tell themselves when it comes to their money. And it doesn't matter if she's, making 6 figures a year or making 5 figures a year. That happens over and over and over again. So many women don't believe that they deserve to be prioritized when it comes to their finances.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that as well, about how there's this, positive correlation towards self-worth and your money. But at the same time, like so many of us are being hit right now. And it's so important that your self-worth is not tied to our careers and not tied to our finances. And Marsha, I know at the Finance Bar, your mission is to create that financial confidence. And what would you say for people, struggling with their self-worth or, not feeling financially confident because their situation isn't exactly how they would like it to be?
Well, I think that now is a perfect time for us to really reflect on what we have attached ourselves to. I'm realizing that when it comes to money and self-worth, for many of us, our self-worth is attached to our titles or how much money we have in a bank account. Very similar to what Tiffany just said. We're attached to being a wife. I'm a mom. So a lot of things that we lead with in life is that I'm a X at work. I'm a vice president, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a mom of 2. So I think we have to remember that now is the perfect time to reflect on what have we attached ourselves to, and then doing some internal work to try to rid ourselves of that. Because post-pandemic will happen. This is something that will end and will go back to normal. The pandemic for many of us, I would say probably for most of us, is new to everyone. This is something that we really only hear about in the movies. So at this time, I think what's really important for us is to consider, number one, what have we attached ourselves to, which is kind of maybe bringing on some of that depression that we're dealing with because we now don't have avenues to go out and perform those things we attached ourselves to. So now you take that off the table. And then number 2, I think using this time to say, the people that we have resources for now, myself, Allegra, Tiffany, pay attention to what those individuals have been attempting to share with us for years. Like reflecting on what is the work and being honest in the mirror to say, what didn't I do? And now what resources are available for me to do better the next time? So it's a lot of inner work, and it's making all of us, I would say, I know for me, looking at myself to say, how can I do things differently post-pandemic and being able to really face that reality. That's really important at this season.
You guys, I can already tell this is going to be a great panel because I'm already taking notes myself, and it's the second question. No, it's so true. And I think a lot of times our relationship to money can be kind of a subconscious belief or narrative that we don't even realize isn't a healthy relationship. And the difference about right now is because so many things are in flux, our money mindset might be a bit louder than it normally is. And Allegra, I'd love to ask you, do you have advice for women on how to navigate and how to identify those money beliefs that might be blocking them? And, what are ways to start actively and intentionally shifting them in a more positive direction?
Yeah, I totally agree with your statement about being in alignment, starting from within. So I hold a core belief that our money mindsets start forming the moment our brain turns on and we understand what money even is. And that's way before we actually start using money to, buy things. Our parents are still in charge, and our families have a certain expectation or way that they talk about money, positive or negative. So I always tell people the best way to get familiar with your mindset is to actually go back. I have a podcast called Coffee and Coin, and the first question I always ask women is, what was your first money memory? Because it's really telling. Sometimes they are very negative. Mine was very negative, but that doesn't mean your story has to stay negative. Now I'm dedicated to spending a life teaching women about how to go from scarcity mindset to abundance mindset. But I think it's important to really reflect back, and we have this time for reflection, and we're already probably in a bit of a panic. So why not just try to tap back into what was some of your first experiences, and then how do you feel about money today? So the course I teach, there's an application process, and one of the questions is, money is blank, and women fill it in. And I just quickly before this call went back to see the last few, and the answers are so intense, because they'll say money is out of my realm, what I lack, evil, overwhelming, hard, impossible to tackle, complicated. And so if our mindsets are that negative to begin with, it's going to be so hard to make positive money moves until we interpret our mindset and try and shift from negative to positive, which I'm not going to lie to you, does not happen overnight. But one of the best ways to start getting into a positive mindset is to first realize if you're in a negative one, and then start to talk about money. Because I think that too many people keep money way too close to the chest. They feel like it's something you cannot talk about. But we talk about anything that's important in our lives, right? We're talking about our career all the time so we can get better at that. So we should talk about money all the time so we can get better at that, more comfortable with that, more confident with that.
No, it's so good. I know, Allegra, we had talked about this, but Sally Krawcheck of Elvest, who's also one of my financial heroes, talks about how women would rather talk about their death than talk about money and the salaries that we make. And it's that uncomfortable for us. And so having tonight and having a place where you guys are speaking freely, but also the women that are attending is such a big move to start to normalize this conversation and empower ourselves with it. So
my father has a saying that he used to say, Megan, that fear makes the wolf bigger than he is.
Oh, that's
right. So
mine is what you resist persists.
Amen.
Exactly. And it's so you just imagine, I could be oh my gosh, I hear this wolf behind the door. I'm sure he's huge and he's big and he's scary. And you open it up and it's a puppy. Right. And it's you've created this monster of money in your head, and that's not true. And Allegra, you hit on something so important about speaking and talking about money is such an important component to getting over that financial fear. I have this Facebook group called Dream Catchers, and it's almost 500,000 women deep. Wow. And I started it to create a non-judgmental, safe space where women can share anything. And someone else, without fail, some woman will share something that she's ashamed of, I'm not going to be able to afford Christmas gifts for my kids this year, or I don't think I'm going to be able to pay my bills. And someone who's similar to her will say, I have 2 kids too, and I'm recently divorced. This is how I work through it. Mm-hmm. So I think creating a safe space, or finding a safe space where you can share what you're going through when it comes to your money, whether it's your sister friends, maybe it's your work mom, maybe it's your bestie, or maybe it's an online, you're here in Moxxie. And so finding a safe space to be able to share, and it helps to alleviate the fear and make turn that wolf from the scary wolf into this cute little puppy.
Yeah. I'm at MoxxieMade, we're all about courageous vulnerability in a healthy way, because that allows us to see we're not alone. and that we all have this same potential that we can share. So powerful. I'd love to kind of navigate the conversation to savings. So when I asked our community, what are topics within money that you really want to talk about, savings obviously came up. And I know the advice is you should have 6 months of your living expenses saved for emergencies. I'm also very well aware, after living in New York for 9 years, that I would reckon a bunch of people here tonight didn't have that amount saved. So Tiffany, this one's for you. I would love to hear, what is your advice for people that, are wanting to create a rapid emergency savings fund right now? And does that 6-month rule, is it still effective, because none of us could have foreseen an emergency like this?
Absolutely. So I've got there's a song that's like, drop down and get your eagle on, girl. But I say, drop down and get your noodle on, girl. Drop down and get your noodle on. So your noodle budget is, I want everybody to remember back to college time when you were eating ramen noodles because you were totally broke. And so your noodle budget is basically your baseline budget. It's you look at all of your finances, right? And you're like, oh, I spend money on, I have cable. I might get haircuts. I know we can't go out right now, but I might have all these things, right? And so what are the essential items that I must spend money on, essential expenses? That's my baseline budget. So maybe your normal budget is $6,000 a month, and that's with rent and, other things. But you're like, if I were to chop off the things that are not essential, meaning I don't need it for health and safety, then I could really get down to $5,000 a month. So I suggest that people get down to that. Depending on where you are financially, if you have a job that you're pretty sure you're not going to be losing anytime soon, you don't have to get all the way down to your noodle budget. You might say, my noodle budget is $5,000, but I could do $5,500 and save $500 a month. But you should always know the range between your normal full budget and your noodle budget, and be living someplace in between. And depending on where you are financially and how secure you are in your income, you should be closer and closer to your noodle budget. And so I know what mine is. I might say, my life cost me, $3,000 a month, but my noodle budget is $5,000. We're living at 27 right now, and banking that other money. Because just because you don't spend money doesn't mean you saved it. I'm going to say it again because it's important, right? Just because you didn't spend money doesn't mean that you saved it. So if I say, hey, hubby, we really don't need this cable. Let's drop this $100 a month. Yay! Unless we put that $100 someplace, you're just going to reabsorb it. And so I suggest that you put that excess from your regular budget and your noodle budget, that in-between money, wherever you land, to put it in an online-only savings account so you can earn more interest, and it can make your money inconvenient. Yeah. Because you're going to link your online-only savings account with your checking account, your regular bank's checking account. You're not going to open up a checking account at your online-only bank, and you're going to link them. And in order to transfer your savings back to your checking where you can spend it, that's a 24 to 72-hour wait. So it's going to force you not to impulse spend with your savings ever again. And so drop down and get your noodle on, then transfer that savings to your online only savings. Everyone's gonna be singing that song. Drop down and get your noodle on, girl.
What about women that are with us tonight? Like half of us in the group were, either lost their jobs or have taken a really big financial hit. So what about that group of us that our finances are already cut? How do we create savings beyond that?
There's going to be moments when, so the last recession, 2008, 2009, I was a school teacher, and I didn't think teachers lost their jobs, but I did, because my school closed. And I remember I had never been late on a bill, let alone not paid it. And a realization hit me after I drained my savings, because I had a condo. So I had a mortgage. I drained my savings to pay for that mortgage. I took the money out of my retirement account to pay for that mortgage. And there was a point where I literally had less money at 30 than I did when I was 16. And I said, there's no more money left. What do I do? And I realized that in moments like that, someone's not getting paid. And it took me too long to realize that. I had to say, so if you're in a place where you're like, there's not enough money, you're going to have to look at your budget and say, someone's not going to get paid. who's not going to get paid, and you're going to choose who's not going to get paid based upon you, not them. Based upon what do I need to maintain my health and what do I need to maintain my safety. So I made the decision that I wasn't going to pay my mortgage. For some people, they can't make that choice because it would make them homeless. But for me, I said, I live in Jersey. My parents live in Jersey. I'm not going to pay the mortgage. They could take the house. I'm going to move back home. I had that option. I know everyone doesn't. So someone else might say, student loans, oh, well, I'm just not going to pay it. You know, hey, cable bill, I'm sorry. I know I owe you. I don't have it, sis. And the worst that's going to happen is that it's going to go on your credit report and you're going to live. My score dropped from an 802 to a 547. I was like, oh, and I lived. And yet miraculously 10 years later, I'm here and I'm back in the 800s. So those are the tough decisions to be made, that do I need this thing to maintain my health? Do I need this expense to maintain my safety? If I don't have enough, I have to put myself as a priority first, and someone else is temporarily not going to get paid. Sometimes you just have to say that.
No, that's super good. And was that what sparked your whole journey into wanting to get more financially literate?
Mm-hmm. Because it was scary. Honestly, I was crying all the time. Yeah. I was afraid and scared because I thought, like, I don't know. I had this doom and gloom. Like, if I don't pay this, what's going to happen to me? I'm not like a kid anymore. I'm not 21. I'm 30. And I lived through it. There were people who didn't get paid. My credit score dropped. All the things, the wolf that was so big happened. And I, when I made a little bit more, I paid a little bit more. I settled some of the debt later on when I had some money. I paid people off when I had it. And then I lived to see another day. And now I'm in a better place, and I'm not late on anything anymore. So it's like, if the worst case scenario in your life should be that someone doesn't get paid, not that you don't have safety and health. Like, you are more important than any of those other bills. Verizon can wait.
Yes. I mean, I think that's so expansive that for women here, I know that I've taken like a financial hit personally, and just to see like, okay, you went through that exact same situation, and then freaking look at where you are now, like teaching so many women and, men about finances. That's very, very inspiring. So thank you for sharing that.
Hey, can I say two things about what you said? One, she just proved what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? We all know that, like we hear it, like you don't know that until you like live it.
Yeah.
And the other one that, I mean, maybe this is just another way to say what you're saying, but act like a company. Don't pay the bills that don't work for the company, just like companies are laying people off. So
lay off your bills. I love it. I'm sorry, Verizon, it's not working out. Yeah, I'm gonna send you the things.
I'm gonna have to let you go.
To cancel your contract,
right? I also like that Tiffany mentioned when she talked about the noodle budget, because we're in a new year and this pandemic happened still at the top of the year. When you consider raises that people may or may not have received, or annual bonuses, is to really consider lifestyle inflation. Because a lot of time we really focus on, if we get a raise, it's like, oh, let me go get that big house. Or, oh, let me go get a luxury car. When we get a bump, because we want our titles, there we are, again, talking about our mindset with money. We want our titles and all of these things that we have to match our lifestyle. So that's a great moment to really think about, when moments like this, where could I really, I could have had wiggle room, but I chose to do X with the money. So it's just really thinking about how we live in general to really give us that disposable income that we could have to the side, opposed to, like, as Tiffany mentioned before, putting it towards something else to elevate our lifestyle because our income increased.
Totally. I mean, I think what sparks that, right, is like figuring out what our values are.
Yeah.
And mirroring that behavior to more of a value-based mindset versus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Allegra, this one's for you. When talking savings with one of my good friends, something that she brought up that I think is like such a true insight is that when she is trying to save, she feels like it actually exacerbates this like lack mentality. And it becomes this like, I can't buy this, I can't do that, I can't, eat this, I can't experience this, and almost creates more of like a scarcity mindset within her. And I know at Factora, something that you guys have been talking a lot about is that delayed gratification of saving versus like the immediate like dopamine hit that you get from spending. And so I'd love for you to kind of touch on that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it goes right into what Marsha was saying. It is so, and this was what I fell trapped to when I was living in New York. I was constantly here, go make more, you deserve more, you're worth more. And so I stood up for my worth, I made more. And then I was like, I deserve nicer things. Like even though I was already living like paycheck to paycheck, and I mean, this was a big raise, $25,000. I immediately went and got a nicer apartment, which if you're living in New York right now, you know, a nicer apartment means some floors down. So like moved out, but I did that. I bought a nice handbag. I took a trip, and it was all said and done for. So I was feeling that exact thing your friend was feeling. Like, don't tell me to spend less when I feel like it's such a struggle to make this money anyways. I want to spend it on what I feel like I deserve, which is what I covet. So what I have really found to help women kind of flip that on its head is, instead of saying like, I know I need to save, like saving's good, I know that everyone tells me I will feel more solid and secure if I were to have savings, but if you don't have a reason behind it other than I know I should, it's really hard to do. So I try and help women discover their savings why. And when you have like the actual like credible statement behind it, you can finally get that push to do it. So like a savings why could be as simple right now as like my next vacation, you know, and maybe you're putting it into a fund that's going to be for your vacation, but that's extra cash for you right now. And that can be your emergency fund or help you bulk it up. So it's a way to flip instant gratification on its head, because of course we like that. Like Jeff Bezos is lining his pockets with how good they are at getting us to make instant gratification purchases on Amazon. One click, avocado peeler arrives tomorrow. Like, you don't need it. You can live without it, but it's much easier to do when you know why you're doing it. And then I'm a big proponent of putting visuals behind it too. So like if you are saving for that vacation or that baby fund or, you know, whatever, get a Pinterest board or like find a picture, put it up, say what it's for. And you can see that every day. And it's going to be much easier to say no to something now because you want something bigger later.
Can I add one thing to that, Megan?
Of course, yeah.
Well, I also think that it's important for us to remember when we think about savings, we always think that it's for an emergency. But as Allegra just mentioned, like there are other things, but I want people to also remember, anyone that's listening or may listen to this later, when you think about emergency savings, what if you're also being bullied at work? Like to me, emergency savings means that I can walk away from toxic situations, toxic work environments, toxic relationships, toxic friendships. I can no longer do she or he as a roommate. It gives you those options. So it's not just if there's a pandemic or I got laid off. It's also for your life's desires to say, you know what? I can't do this job anymore because it's tearing me up internally. So we always have to put our mind there as well to say that this money is just not for what other people perceive as an emergency. It's for that's why I'm so big on financial wellness. Savings money in general should always make us feel like we have a level of confidence that we don't feel like every day we're holding our breath. You should feel really well. And if you're not there in this moment, that's why I'm really glad that we're doing this tonight. Make sure that after this is all said and done, that you work towards it for your sanity first. You know, think about the people that have nothing at this moment. Like it's so you can have that internal level of peace. And that's just why it's so important to me that it's not just for an emergency for your mortgage or rent or your light bill. It's so you can have a level of internal peace.
Yes. So good.
And I have to volley back on that, Marsha, because it's so, so important, your message. Because the message that's been out there for the last, I feel like 5 years has been just telling women to earn more and then they'll be better off. But if you earn more but don't end up having more because you don't have solid saving strategies and like a belief that you can, and then, you know, actually open up the high yield savings account, automate it, fill it, feel secure from it, then you're going to end up making more, but still be like tied to whatever bad environment you might be in. And I just don't ever want women to be stuck like that. And I've been stuck. Not
I think it's the language you use too, right? So my friends used to tease me that I was so cheap. I never want to spend money with them. But they used to go to brunch every Sunday. And I used to go as well until I realized that I never was, I really wanted to travel. This is like in my mid-20s. And I'm like, I want to travel, but I don't have enough money. That's what I told myself. And then I started to look, well, where's my money going? And it was to brunch. And then I just remember thinking, well, I'm not going to go to brunch anymore. I'm going to put that $50 or $30 a week into a savings account to save for travel. And so when my friends would ask me, it's hard to save without support, right? Yeah. My friends would ask me, hey, Tiffany, you want to go to brunch? And I'm saying, no, it's, oh, Tiffany, you never want to do anything with us. So I felt bad. And then there's this pressure to go until one day that changed. I took my first solo trip. I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because on my vision board, I really wanted, my bucket list, I wanted to take an air balloon, what is it, hot air balloon ride. And Albuquerque, New Mexico is the hot air balloon capital of the world. I didn't know. And so I went, my friend called me, and I was literally about to get into the balloon. And she said, hey girl, you know, we're going to go to brunch tomorrow, but I know with your cheap self, you're not going to want to go. And I said, actually, I was on Groupon. I found this super cheap flight, and I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, not Jersey. And I'm about to get into hot air balloon. And she was like, wait, what? And she was like, what? It was like mic drop. And so, but what it taught me was that she wasn't mad at me or upset with me, because now she became a supporter of my savings. Yep. So I stopped saying, I can't do this with you. Instead, I started to say, oh, I'm setting aside for Paris. Can you go? Do you want to go to brunch? Oh, girl, I'm setting aside for Morocco. And they're like, oh, Morocco, not Tiffany, you don't want to go. So create supporters of your savings by sharing your goals with folks. You'd be surprised. They're on board with you. And so I wasn't saying no to them. I was saying yes to me. And so that's going to significantly help.
That's good.
That's so good.
And turn them into your accountability partners.
Yes.
Like, save together.
Accountability buddies. Yeah. So kind of playing back all of this like juicy discussion, it sounds like when looking at our savings, as equally as important as figuring out kind of the executional piece, it's also really important to figure out like what are our values behind the financial abundant lifestyle we want to create. Also just like what are those goals that we want to track towards to help motivate us in those moments where it feels a lot, it feels hard to keep a budget. I know, Marsha, like a question I have for you is, given that people take these steps to start saving, how do you make your savings work the hardest for you? I feel like a lot of people create just that savings account with their bank, but are there better options to really make that savings and that money work harder for you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So if you built up your savings account to a level that makes you feel really confident, then I think one of the first things that you should consider doing is making sure that money is in a money market savings account, which what that is a high yield savings account. Tiffany mentioned before using an online savings account, because while it's accessible, it takes longer for you to get that money. And with this discussion, we have talked a lot about making sure that we're not using emergencies for things like a concert ticket or a trip with the girls or something random. Put it in a money market account so you're able to, so it's able to grow for you, number one. But then number two, try to have an account that's not attached to, let's say, your checking account or your bill account, because it makes it very easy just to transfer those funds, with a click of a button or a phone call to your bank. So I think those are the two things that you should do. But I also think that you should still automate your savings. Like we say that 6 months of expenses right now is, great, but in this pandemic, like they're talking about like not having, something to like help cure it until like 8 months. So you don't know how long this thing will be really going on. And something also to remember about a recession or a pandemic or emergencies in general is sometimes you just don't know when it will end. So even if you have your savings account to a place that made you feel comfortable, it's okay now to add a little bit more. I think that's a way to really get yourself to even a better place to make you feel more confident. Like if you're not using gas to go to work, put that money in your savings account just so it could continue to grow. And then try your best to definitely stay away from it. I know that right now it's very easy to go online and make purchases that we really don't need, to have fancy pajamas just to sit in the living room or to do a Zoom call. You know, though it's very easy to do those things now. And while we want to support other people, that's great. We also, as Tiffany mentioned, you have to also say yes to yourself first and set yourself up as best as you possibly can.
Yeah. I want to keep things moving because we have a lot of other subjects to hit, but I think something that would be great, just as like show notes at the end of this, is if you guys have resources that I can send along to link to, like, how do people find those high yield savings accounts?
For sure.
Like, I would like to set myself up with one of those. So I'm sure a bunch of other people are curious about that as well. You know, moving on to the subject of debt, I know from my research, like the average American has $7,000 in credit card debt, $50,000 in student loans. And so directing this to the group, but what advice do you guys have for people, both from the lens of like individuals that have taken a financial hit and are trying to balance like paying off debt and saving, and then also managing debt from the lens of like you have a steady income coming in, but you want to be a bit more aggressive about it at this moment?
Well, the number one thing I've been asked right now is, should I continue to pay off my credit card debt during this pandemic? And what should I do? And normally, so things up is down and down is up during a recession and things and financial trauma. And so normally I'm like, yes, aggressively pay down especially your high interest debt, which is credit card debt, but aggressively pay down your debt. Continue to save, but aggressively pay down your debt, but not during a recession. And here's why. Because during a recession, which they can't call it yet because it has to be economic downturn for 6 months straight. We're only in month 2 yet, so it hasn't been 6 months. So, but it's looking like, we'll call it pre-recession. So during a pre-recession, and we don't, like Marsha mentioned, we don't know how long it's going to last. I want to make sure that you have, you can get as close to that 6 months as possible. And if it means paying the minimum to your credit card debt and putting that money towards your savings. So let's just say your normal credit card debt minimum is $20 a month, but you usually pay $100 a month to it. So that's great. But now I want you to pay that $20 and put that $80 every month to your savings account until you have that 6 months of new budget saved up. Because we don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, I was a school teacher and I'm like, teachers don't lose their jobs. We might not lose our jobs, but schools closed, and mine did. And so I much rather you have a stocked savings account than a lower credit card balance, because debt-free and no savings equals debt. I'll show you how. So let's just say, oh, I'm debt-free. Woo-hoo, I'm so excited. I paid off my credit card debt, but I don't have any savings, but that's okay because I'm debt-free. And then your car breaks down. And you're like, car breaks down. What am I going to do? Look at savings account. There's nothing there. What am I going to do? You're going to use your credit card. So you're going to be right back in debt. You're going to use your credit card as a emergency savings tool. And the credit card company is going to charge you for that privilege to use them as an emergency savings tool. I much rather you have the money in your savings, and then you could take money from yourself for free. So focus on your savings during times like this. And then when you have enough savings, then you can go back to being a little bit more aggressive with that.
Good.
Do you guys have any advice of ways to work with credit card companies to try to lower your APR, or like, any kind of tips or tricks in terms of negotiation there to help manage debt in that way?
Sure. I would say that if you're someone, you've been with your credit card company for years and you have consistently made on-time payments with them, it never hurts to give them a call to say, hey, my name is X. I've been with you since 2010, I am consistently making payments, and I'm contacting you to see if there's a way for me to get my interest rate lowered, because X over here is offering me a better rate. If I transfer over to them, what can you do for me? And then you just wait for them to respond. So a lot of times it's not a back and forth negotiation. I just think if you have your story prepared about how long you've been with them, you've been making on-time payments, what can they do for you? Because another company is is offering a better rate. And again, I think that's another topic about what we're attached to, because, you know, oftentimes when we grow up, accounts or credit card companies that our parents used or banks that our parents banked with, we're like, our parents said it, so it's the gospel truth. And then we grow up and we identify ways to be able to save more money or to be able to function better ourselves. I just think it's a matter of contacting those companies, Megan, and telling your story and to see what they can offer you if they want to keep you as a customer.
Something I have also done, and I'm sure you guys recommend more so just in terms of like increasing your credit score, if you're foreseeing that it might take a hit, is I like routinely ask for more credit so that debt to credit ratio is better. So that's also like another tip that I try to apply every, I think, 6 months.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that people do that, but you have to be cognizant of whether or not increasing the credit limit is going to entice you to spend more. So it's a really good way to lower your utilization rate, which is one of the highest factors that's going to affect your credit score. But just be cautious with that, because you want to make sure you're not like, oh, extra wiggle room.
Yeah. No,
but I will say this, that if you know your score is going to take a hit, you're like, I just got my pink slip today. What am I going to do? Darn it. I know I'm going to be late on bills now because I don't have the unemployment's not going to be enough. So what I did was right before, I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay Chase this mortgage next month. They're about to beat me up because of this, right? But so I knew that was happening, but I also knew I didn't know how I was going to manage. So I was like, while your credit score is still good, I opened up a credit card as a backup to the backup to the backup. Before my credit, because I knew, you know, a month from now when my score took a nosedive, I wasn't going to be able to get a credit card. So I opened up a credit card, like just in case, because I much rather remember. So sometimes you know, you're in a position where it's like you have to choose bad, worse, or terrible, the decisions. And it just is what it is because you're an adult. So it wasn't my idea to use my credit card to like survive, but if I'm not going to go hungry, if I have to swipe my card, I'm going to swipe my card. But I knew I wasn't going to be able to get one later. So if you can sense that these times are coming, preparing yourself now. I had that credit card. I was able to get a decent limit on it. And I was like, okay, let's go. I know my credit score is going to take a hit. We're ready for it. I know Chase is going to be mad at me. Okay, I'm hunkered down and I'm ready. And all those things happened. And I leaned into the credit card when I needed it. And slowly but surely, as things got better, I was able to do better. But do what you have to do until you can do what you can do.
So your credit score is basically what tells different banks and financial institutions your trustworthiness. So you can liken it to, it's like an adult GPA. Like that's them looking at if you are going to return the money that they extend to you. So that was a great advanced strategy, Tiffany. And people who have high credit scores have a lot more options. So for example, if you are carrying high interest consumer debt, but you also have a high, good credit score, like 750s plus, you could likely qualify for a 0% interest credit card in which you could roll your high interest consumer debt over to that. It's going to give you a certain amount of months, maybe 12, 15, 18 months. You can negotiate. Everything's up for negotiation right now with this market. And then you can try and pay that off, or not even pay that off aggressively right now because it's at 0% interest, but make a plan for it. So I guess my big thought on debt is that it's a teeny little word for how much it entails. And there's like so many types of debts. And I think debt is just automatically a scary word. And like, don't get it twisted. Debt does mean you have an obligation, like a contract, to pay back something, right? Whether it's a student loan, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a mortgage, car loan, like private loan, you name it. But there is a big difference between debt that's high interest and debt that's low interest. And there's also a big difference between debt without a plan and debt with a plan. So like, for example, I have a real estate portfolio in Austin, and each of our properties has a mortgage on it, but it's lower interest. They're 3.5% below rates, and I have tenants that pay those mortgages for me. So if I was liable for all of those, and I am, if the renter doesn't pay it, I am liable for it. But if I had to pay all of those, that would be one thing. It's another thing to make it a wealth building strategy. So that is just like a 4-letter word for a ton of stuff that it could mean.
Yeah, that's so true. Those strategies. No, I'm just sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Another short word that has a lot of punch behind it that many women wrote in and wanting more knowledge about was investments. And, you know, before we kind of dive into both retirement investments and then also investments kind of with surplus funds, Marsha, would you be able to give us a high level kind of overview of different types of investments?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. So I think that one thing that's very important before I do that, when we talk about the topic of investing, is many people want to know about it. But I found in my experience, many people just aren't at a place. So we've talked about the basics of saving or paying off debt, or as Allegra just mentioned, she talked about credit, because investing is a sexy word. Investing, for many people, if you were not taught about investing growing up, then you could liken it to being rich or being wealthy. So that's number one. I think that there are cycles of financial planning. And number one is we talked a lot about savings. That's number one, if you have your accounts where you want them to be at. If you are a working adult, I think the next investment strategy should be, are you investing into your company's 401k? A 401k is basically a company-sponsored retirement plan. And if you have questions about it, it's very simple. Just call HR, and no question is a crazy question. Just ask away. But I do think that it's important that even if you haven't been able to deep dive into your company's 401k plan, if you haven't started, invest 1%, 2%, something that you won't miss until you're able to learn more about it. That's number two. Number three, I think you also have an option to invest into a Roth IRA. And that's just simply an account where you have to invest taxable income, meaning that if you got gifts for money or things of that nature, you cannot invest that money. And the reason why, if people are wondering, why would I have a 401k and a Roth IRA, is because a lot of times what you've probably heard, even if you've done a Google or you're on social media, you hear about diversification when it comes to investments. You have money in different places. If we're in a pandemic, people are losing money. If all of your money is in a 401k, something happens to your 401k, you have nothing invested. So that is another option. Number one, savings. Number two, 401k. Number three, a Roth IRA. And then there's the option to have a brokerage account. A brokerage account is when you hear people talk about, I purchase stocks, or as Allegra just mentioned, real estate properties. I invested into commercial property. I invested into bonds, things of that nature. So I would say, for starters, for anyone starting out that may be new to it, that is how I view investing in those 4 ways. Number one would definitely be like save. Even if you don't view it as an investment, it's an investment into yourself in case things happen. Number two, a 401k. 3 would be a IRA, and 4 would be like a brokerage account.
I'm curious how debt falls into that kind of like order of priority, in terms of, like, we know kind of from today's discussion, focus on savings and meet like the minimum of your debt until you have like a healthy savings fund, and then start paying off your debt more aggressively. But do you invest in your retirement account at the same time as debt, and kind of where does that fall within the picture?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think it's important to remember that for many people, you will always owe someone. You will always owe someone. So if you wait until you are like debt free, aside for, let's say, like your student loans or your mortgage, then you may never start to invest. But I do recommend that if you have things like consumer debt and credit cards and all this, high end or high price debt, that you do try to get that down as much as possible. But you shouldn't wait until all of that's down before you begin to invest in something like a 401k. Because let's be honest, if your company is matching it to some extent, that's free money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and just, if you're working there, you're invested into the company, invest into those 401k accounts.
And just to be clear, Megan, I don't normally, I want you to be aggressive with paying down credit card debt. It's just because it's pre-recession.
Right.
That I'm saying. So not, because I don't want people to like, oh, okay, Tiffany said, I'm like, no, like pay off that credit card. Yeah, it's just because I want you to protect yourself with savings because it's crazy times. And when it's normal times, go back to paying off your debt. Yeah.
And then one more thing, Megan, is I also want to stress the importance for people that may be thinking about investing. And I'll say, beyond 401k, is investing is not for money that you need like next year or even over the next 5 years. And this also should be money that you may be willing to lose it before you gain it back. It's a long-term strategy. Mm-hmm. Meaning Marsha today, if Marsha is investing today, I have a son that's in his 20s now. Like when he gets older, do I want to be able to buy him his first home? Mm-hmm. Do I want my husband and I to be able to go live on a beach in a beach property? It's not for me to say like 5 years from now, I'm going to cash out. And so that's why many people, when they think about their parents and retirement, and we're like, oh, people retire on the beach all the time. That's why. It's because they have these portfolios that have allowed them to live that lifestyle. It's not for money that you can just go get. And I want to stress the importance of research, because social media right now is very loud when it comes to investing. It's very loud. So if you don't do research yourself, or you think about a long-term strategy, then you'll just take the bait and you will begin to invest into things you're not knowledgeable about. Or as I mentioned, you will start to skip like from kindergarten and you'll go to graduation because you don't have a savings account built yet. And you went to now trying to put your money into somebody's real estate property that you knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm. And just to follow up on where does debt fall into investing, that goes back to your why. Sorry to be annoying about it, but you need to have financial goals planned out so you can understand where to put money. Because like Marsha said, if you don't need that money back for a long time, then it can be invested. But if you have a goal that you're going to require cash for in 2-3 years, then you really want to put it in the market. And if you're looking to have a certain amount and we're in a downturn like we are today and it's down 30%, that's really going to be unfulfilling. So this stuff, when it's all siloed, it's really complicated. But what I found is if you can actually start to understand, so that's the financial acumen, like gaining the knowledge about savings, which is 100% always going to be number one, because you can't invest if you don't have money to invest. So it's like, you got to save. You got to save to not get back in debt. You got to save to get out of debt. You got to save so that you can invest. But if you don't have your goals clearly defined and outlined, it is so hard to figure out which thing to do. So, I guess I'll give you this because I don't want to be really annoying and be like, oh, personal finance is personal and I can't tell you because there's 125 of you on the call. But you can definitely start with recognizing your debt and what the rate is. So the APR, which was going on in the chat, that annual percentage rate, if we're talking about credit card debt, it's probably at 20%. If we're talking about mortgage or student loan debt, it might be 3 to 5%. So that's carrying two very different types of debts. And if you're looking at the market, and we are not talking about now, but we are talking about long time horizons, which can usually return around 8%, then, that's why you don't necessarily have to pay off low interest debt to gain the differential between that and the market. But that's why you definitely want to get rid of consumer interest debt so you can be doing the other things. So it really all goes back to planning, and that's the hardest work of this all, is like sitting down with yourself and figuring out, what do you want your life to look like and when do you want to do things? Because I think it's really easy for us to turn on autopilot sometimes. And then that's why we freak out, because we're like, wait, I don't really, there's a pandemic here. Accounts aren't right. I got some debt over here. What's this? And exactly what you all said in the beginning, all these panelists are so great at offering up that there are so many people out there that want to help and give you this financial knowledge, because we've been through something brought us into this industry, and we want to share that. And so like now is a great time when we're all at home to go learn this so that you can figure out confidently, okay, I'm going to pay off this debt. I'm going to put that on minimum. I'm going to invest here. And that might be not, I totally agree. Like maybe don't open up a brokerage account if you've never started investing, but I'm going to look at my 401k. I'm going to realize my employer has a match up to 3%. I'm at 1. I might bump that up if my emergency fund is filled. But it's knowing all of these things and how they relate that helps you get clear on what to do. So I love all these questions, but sometimes they're so one-off and nuanced. It's hard to get a good answer for people.
Can I share like a quick tool if you don't know how to invest at all? Because I feel like when I first started, I was like, what do I do? So that quick tool is called a target date fund. That's like investing for dummies.
Yeah.
And the way a target date fund works is that you say, what is my target date? Typically it's your retirement date, the date that you want to pull the money out. And target date funds are usually done by every 5 years. So it'll be like 2030, 2035, 2040, 2045. So you pick the year that you're wanting to pull the money out, the year typically of your retirement. And then you pick things like, sometimes you'll have things like how, what's your investment? They might ask you like for example, Acorns has stuff like this. They're like, are you aggressive? Would you be scared if this happened? So you answer kind of like these questions. So there's Vanguard, there's Fidelity, there's Charles Schwab. So you're going to pick your target date. And then like a savings account, every pay period, put your money in and it will rebalance your investments for you. Target date funds put your money in a group of funds. So you can choose so I would suggest to start with something called a total market fund, meaning they're going to look at your target date funds going to be based on all the stocks that are out there. So as the stocks go up, your money will go up. As the stocks go down, your money will go down. And as Allegra mentioned, on average, that's about 7 to 8% increase a year on average. So some years it'll go up 20, some years it'll go down to 3. And so if you don't know how to do anything else, if you put your money in a target date fund, over the next 10 years, you should on average gain about 8% in growth. And you don't have to pick the individual stocks, the individual bonds. And what's so great about a target date fund, when I said rebalancing, what that means is the closer you get to the target date, the more conservative your investments become automatically, because the target date fund knows, Megan is going to be taking out her money soon. We really should not be in these wild, crazy stocks. We need to be more in bonds right now because Megan's going to be taking out her money soon. So if you don't do anything else, target date fund, because I know there are people who are listening, they're like, oh, this sounds great, but where do I start? So when you're looking, I'll end with this, when you're looking for a target date fund, the number one thing I look for is something called your expense ratio. You could just Google it. That means the price that the target date fund is charging you. So Vanguard right now has one of the lowest. It's like 0.06%, and somebody else might say 0.09%. That is the percentage of the money that you have invested at that target date fund that they're going to be taking for their fees. So you're going to look for a low expense ratio when it comes to your target date fund. And if you do that, you're going to be better off than most people.
So I have 2 quick follow-up questions, and then I do want us to kind of start to transition into Q&A. The first one being, in normal circumstances or ideal circumstances, if you have your savings, Roth IRA versus 401k, what are your guys' opinions and how much you should be automatically taking from your income to your savings? Do you have an initial starting place goal? And then the second piece is that we got a ton of questions around people asking if they should, at this time, stop contributing to their 401k to help increase their savings.
Well, first of all, I'm sure that not everyone on this call is offered a 401k. You might be at a startup, you might be at a company that doesn't even offer it. The difference is that a 401k is an employee-sponsored retirement account, and an IRA stands for individual retirement account. So that's the government creating a vehicle for us to save retirement dollars for ourselves. And both of these have stipulations. I don't know if you want to get into that, but you can only, if you do have a 401k for 2020, you can only contribute up to $19,000. And if you do have an IRA, you can only contribute up to $6,000. And an IRA actually has limitations based on how much you earn, whether you even qualify at all. So also very nuanced and going to take more than a call, but I will say, to answer your initial question, it's like, I look at it as having a tax advantage vehicle and a non-tax advantage vehicle. Tax advantage means it is a retirement account that the government, and by the way, the reason that these exist is because government wants to entice you to save for yourself so they don't have to pay for you.
Yep,
Which they're probably not going to do, as we know anyways. So like, take the option. But the brokerage account, you know, the other options that we were mentioning, like using something like a Vanguard or a Fidelity, these brokerage accounts where you can invest, that's you doing it on your own. That is a non-tax advantage account. You are using that with taxable income. So you don't get the tax benefit. But what you do get is access to it, because in this little tax advantage vehicle over here, 401k IRA world, they don't want you to take that money out until you're 59 and a half, because they want to have a lot of time between now and then for that money to grow and take advantage of compound interest. Whereas a lot of us want to do things before we're 59 and a half. We want to like go on trips. We want to, you know, there are large purchases that might happen. And so if you know you want to be growing money outside of that retirement focus, then that's when you would use a brokerage account. I think I lost what your original question was.
No, that was super helpful in terms of like, again, it goes back to what your goals are and values in terms of kind of the directions you pick in terms of your investments with Roth IRA, 401k, tax advantage versus more brokerage. You kind of have a bit more flexibility there until you can access the funds. Last question on investments is just, we got a ton of questions around, should you stop contributing at this moment if you don't have your savings, you know, completely sorted out?
I would say yes. I would say savings is absolute key in this pandemic, because if you have to take money out of your retirement accounts for something that is not qualified, like a 401k will allow you a first-time home purchase, some education expenses. There are reasons that you can borrow money from your 401k, but if you need to take money out for not those reasons, just to pay your bills, you are going to be hit with a big like default and lose a big percentage of that. So 10%. In all costs, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we have enough savings for us. So like, if that's what you need to do, that's fine. That's exactly like Tiffany was saying, like only pay your credit card minimums right now. If you don't have cash is queen.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes. And I'll say this, because I've seen people not want to contribute to the 401k because they're afraid that because the market is going down.
Right.
Don't not contribute because of that. If it's because you want to conserve your savings, absolutely. But if you're like, I'm scared, you have to understand, I want you to think about the stock market as a roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up again. The last 100 years, it's been doing that thing, right? So your job is to, if you have it, to continue to contribute during the ups and downs and ups and downs. And what you'll find is that at the end, when it's time for you to take your money out, if you've kept it in there long term, you will have made this medium amount of money earned, because you will have lost some when it was down and gained a lot when it was up. So somewhere in between. So what you don't want to do is you can't time the market and decide when to get in. Just keep contributing as long as you have a decent amount of savings. Don't not contribute because of market fear.
I think that's a really good point, because your question was in relation to if you don't have savings. If you don't have savings, I would definitely recommend not contributing. But if you do have savings, right now the market's on fire sale. So it's a great time to just keep doing what you're doing and take advantage of getting in when it's low cost. You 100% can't time the market. No one saw a pandemic coming. Like, didn't know that a recession was, on the horizon. So that's not the point. But if you have it as your financial plan to be investing in your retirement accounts, and you are not losing your job and you have savings, absolutely take advantage of that, because you are literally buying things on discount. And the other thing to understand about the stock market and just market mechanics in general is, as it has its swings and it goes up and down, you don't lose money. You only lose the value of what you own. And so you're only losing money if you actually pull out. So like your value can be high, your value can be low, your value can be high, it can go low again, but you would only lose money if you were to take your money out during a downturn.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So I'd love to ask all of our attendees to go into the Q&A functionality that's at the bottom of the screen and start typing in any questions that you have for us while I have our amazing mentors answer this last question. So a question we ask all of our mentors at the end of the event, and then also our community, is what was a moment in the past month, give it the 7 to 8 weeks that we've been quarantining, that was a moment where you really flexed your courageous muscles and you did something that was really expansive for you. So Allegra,
I'll say,
no, don't start with me, but I thought we had since the beginning of the year. Now I got to come up with a new one.
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead, Marsha.
So I'm like, can they hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I'll say that, and this is maybe not something that I'm proud of per se, but I shared with Megan a couple of weeks ago that my mother-in-law tested positive for COVID-19. Mm. And one of her symptoms that she has, and she still has, is that her neurological system has been off ever since she tested positive. So many of the things that we heard about, like coughs and chills, she's not dealing with any of that, but she's having some mental issues that she's never had before. And my husband is an only child. So when it happened to her, we're in 2 different states. She didn't have a nurse. So we don't have access to any of her accounts. And she does well with playing. Like, she has all of her life. She's retired, plays the piano at church, things like that. So this is very abnormal for her. But we were able to hire a nurse for her. And we've been paying for her nurse for the past 4 weeks, now going on 5. So for me, I've talked a lot during this session about being financially well and being financially confident. So that is one thing that I feel like I was able to flex my financial muscles in support of my mother-in-law, to be able to help her during such an unfortunate time. And that is what I think this whole money game is about. It's not only about us, it's about being able to jump in when it's someone that you really love and they can't help themselves at the moment. So for me, that I'm really proud of myself and my husband for being able to do that for her, and it not destroy our little financial platform of the goals that we're setting for ourselves, and putting her at the forefront, because I know it's something that she would have done for either one of us.
And I do want to say, thank you so much too, with all of that going on, like being here and providing your mentorship tonight. It means so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Marsha, you are so inspirational. That story actually just helped me think of one, because Factora's mission is to lead 1 million women to 1 million in net worth. And I know it sounds sexy, scary, impossible. I'm not stopping until we do it. But a lot of people don't think that being a millionaire is a good thing. But if you have more money and you're taken care of, kind of like putting on the life vest for yourself before you can put it on others, then women who care so much about so many causes and so much coming into this world, like that extra money allows you to create the change you want to see in the world. So I guess my Moxie moment was that we had plans to build a tiny home in our backyard. We were going to Airbnb it. Airbnb is no longer doing its thing right now. So we had this moment of like, wait, should we continue spending to do that? Or should we just stop the project and save that cash? Because we didn't know. And this is where I fall back on, I'm so glad that I have a financial plan and we decided to stick to it. We finished this tiny home, which allowed workers who were not going to have jobs to continue having jobs. And now we're going to be renting it to someone who can't afford their full mortgage. So they're moving out and renting their place so that they can move in and save additional cash. So I'm like really grateful that we went through with it. And like, this is just proof of what money can do, y'all. Money is a tool.
And also too, like proof of like when women have money, it's like, you know, like research shows like we send it to give back and like pour into our communities.
But you know what, Megan, that's one thing, and I know this is kind of off topic, but for many people, they don't realize that myself and Tiffany, we met years ago.
Yes.
And I remember one of the things that Tiffany would always talk about, and she still does now, if you follow her on any platforms, is the importance of giving.
Yeah.
So I have learned that over many years that when you give in support of others, some way it's reciprocal. You always get it back, or you always have a level of abundance. And I stand by the truth of always make sure you take care of yourself first, but giving just feels so good when you're able to support people that are just down. It just does. And I just think that it's so important. So whether it's your family or whether it's a friend or someone else that you don't even know, I think that having the ability to give from a place of abundance is so freeing.
So I will say my Moxie moment, I'm trying to decide like which one I should do. So I won't do my parents since you did your parents, your mother-in-law. So there is a young woman I know, she's a friend of mine. And, you know, I don't know if folks know, but there's an article that came out that especially during this time, there are people who are basically locked in with their abusers.
Yeah.
You know, that there's a high uptick in abuse because normally maybe that abuser normally goes to work or, you know, hangs out or whatever, but now they're home all the time. And so I had a young woman that I knew, and I knew that was happening. And she's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. And so she was able to find an apartment. She's got 2 young children. And somebody helped me when I needed. I thank God I've never been in an abusive relationship in that way. But so kind of came out like in the friend group, what can we do? And I was able to. It's so crazy because just 10 years ago, I had nothing and I lost my house to foreclosure, and we pay her rent. My husband and I are able to say, you know, you don't have to worry about rent when it comes to you and your small children until you can kind of figure out what the next step is. And so, I mean, Marsha's right. I've come so far from where I was. I mean, so I'm 40 now, but at 30, when I say I had nothing, I mean, it's only by the grace of God that like I was able to, you know, move in with my parents. So I wasn't gonna be hungry and I wasn't gonna be homeless. So thank God for that. But I had nothing. I didn't have like a quarter in my pocket. You know, you're like, oh, I could dig through my purse. Everything was gone. I had more money at 16 when I used to babysit than I did at 30. And I remember thinking, I fell into a depression because I was thinking like, I went to school. I have my master's. Like I was a good teacher. How could I lose everything? And then now to be 40 and to have a 6-7 figure net worth. My net worth back then was negative 6 figures. My net worth now is 7 figures. And to have built a company that's helped, you know, millions of women with their finances, and to have done so from a place of service. We give away more than what we earn back. And still to be able to build a multi-7 figure a year company. We actually had our first 7-figure month in April, which is crazy. Wow. So we're going to eventually be an 8-figure a year company. And to do so though, because everybody on my team knows that our mission is to help women live better lives. And, you know, and that means for free, then so be it for free. So to be able to me, money for me is a tool that you can use to be of service to others. And, you know, and to be able to do that has been like, because what I was going to say is last year, I was able to pay off my parents' house. My mom is a nurse. Look how things go full circle. She was a nurse. She was like, I really don't want to do this anymore. It's been hard. Nursing is hard on your body. And I always wanted to retire her. And she retired herself, even though they really didn't have the funds to. She just was like, I'm not going back to work. It's too much. And so I sat down with my dad and I said, well, you know, are you guys going to be able to afford life? And he basically was like, no, not really. So we looked at his budget. And it was really the mortgage, because they had taken out a second mortgage to put I'm one of 5 girls, to put the baby through school. And so I said, well, what if me and my husband, what if we paid off your mortgage? And if you know, well, y'all don't know me, I was the wild child, like coming up. So I was like bad Tiffany of the 5 girls. So it was always like, oh boy, what has Tiffany gotten into now? Right? So my dad's like, pay off my mortgage? You? okay, because they don't, parents don't know what you're up to. Like, what's the Budgetnista? Right? And I was like, no. He was like, isn't it going to bankrupt you? I was like, no. He couldn't believe it. He's like, I could tell he didn't believe it. It was a Friday. On Tuesday, I called. I paid it off. And he called the bank at least 50 times just to hear, your balance is zero. Your balance is zero. And I think about that now I was able to do that. But I think about now how grateful I am because my mom was a nurse. She's in her 60s.
Wow.
What that would have meant now,
That's right. Yeah.
And so like, I just get goosebumps thinking like, oh my gosh, I mean, thank God for our healthcare professionals, but she's in her 60s. What would we have done?
That's
for her
right.
to go every day. And then to come home to my father who's in his 70s.
Yeah.
So to bring potentially like coronavirus into that household. And I don't, how do you survive that at 73 years old, And so it's just like, yeah, that money truly is a tool for service. It's nice to have nice things. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to be comfortable, but to know that you can be a resource to people in need, nothing beats that.
Absolutely.
I know one there's always key insights and nuggets that from every event I take away. And I know, Tiffany, we've heard a lot about your story, but Allegra and Marsha, I feel like you guys have also had your tales where like money didn't come natural to you in the beginning. And like what I hope everyone tonight takes away is that it's possible for them. Mm-hmm. And that like you can do this too. It's, you guys are real women and have, just gotten really financially aggressive about like your learning and applying and getting deep on your money mindset, and that it's like this wealth is available to all of us. So thank you guys. So I know we're running a little bit over on time, but I want to pick 3 questions and then maybe each one of you can kind of answer one. But a common theme that people want to know about is like, what is your one kind of key takeaway, like money piece of advice that you guys live by every day?
I think for me, or for anyone that may be watching, one key piece of advice for me, or would be for any other, for anyone else, because I think many of us we really don't know what we want for our life. And when you don't know what you want for your life, the larger picture, you don't know what you want to do with your money. So many of us never have a strategy for our money. I think Allegra mentioned it earlier. If you don't have a reason behind saving or investing or having a decent credit score or lower debt, then it's just kind of like a tool. Cash becomes like monopoly money that you're just playing with. So having a larger picture, myself, Tiffany, Allegra, we've all went to go build businesses for whatever reason that those young ladies did it. I know for me, it was more time with my family, flexibility to be able to service women every single day that I wake up. So I would say for me, I am super big on value and not looking to anyone else for validation on how I live my life, because I know that Marsha has a playbook that doesn't even involve my husband. It's just what makes me feel good at the core to live my life. So that's the advice I would share for anyone else as it relates to money is have a playbook for your life and understand what your values are. And even if those dreams don't turn next year or the year after that, have a plan for where you are headed. And I promise you, you'll become almost addicted and obsessed with trying to figure out ways legally to be able to get to that life that your heart so desires.
That's so good. So another question we have is about resources around feeling guilty when spending money. And I think that question also kind of ties back to what we talked about in the beginning about self-worth and about not feeling deserving. So do you guys have any ways, pieces of advice for women that might be feeling that way?
So one of the ways I do is somebody mentioned it in the chat. I saw that, do you have separate bank accounts for different goals? And I call them my money bucket. So that's how I get over the guilt that I like to separate my money. So I'm like, I have a bills account for bills. I have like a checking account for spending, but spending for things like groceries and gas and things like that. And then I also have different savings accounts for different big goals. So I have my emergency savings when I was saving for this house. It was a house account. When I was saving for a car account. When I was saving for vacation, a vacation account. So when I was like, I need to go somewhere, I'd look in my vacation account and maybe there'd be $300, $600, $800 there. And that would dictate what I could spend guilt-free, because one, I knew I had my emergency fund is there. My bills account is there. My other expense account is there. So I knew this money is set aside specifically for this thing. So, because I'm not good at spending on myself. Like, let somebody need something. I'm like, what? Somebody needs something? Whatever you need. Like, I donate so much, but for me, that's why I said before, like, oh, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. It's hard for me to do for myself. And so the way that I kind of help to get over that is to set aside specific funds for that, because there's no excuse. I'm like, well, I can, no, Tiffany, the bills are paid. Well, maybe, no. Emergency, saving is saved. Well, maybe, no, your retirement money's put up. This money you set aside for vacation, you can do it. You're allowed. And so that's what helps me significantly. Separate savings accounts, online only savings accounts, because I want it to be inconvenient for my goals.
That's good. And then I think to close it out, Allegra, what are some of your favorite books or resources that people can look into at this time to start to expand their money and their financial knowledge?
Yeah, so I would say a very well-known book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a lot about mindset shift and really expansive wealth consciousness. And so I really would recommend that book if you haven't read it. And then for something that's more tactical, and it's going to include advice like scripts on what to say when you call the credit card company and are doing exactly what we're saying, either asking to get a fee taken off or up your amount of credit limit, or reduce the APR, is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's a book by Moet.
I'm reading it right now, actually.
Oh yeah? He is no bullshit.
Yeah.
I hope I can cut. I'm not going to say it sweetly. I'm just going to say it. This is what you got to do. And so I think he has I don't actually agree with all of his financial advice, but I think he's got some really good tactical, helpful stuff, especially in the beginning. Just like understanding why you want to be in a high yield savings account, how to actually move over to it, creating some structures around your finances.
Thank you.
Tiffany, what is the book you used to talk about all the time? I feel like it helps with a lot with money mindset. Babylon.
The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah.
You can just Google it.
I gotta check it out.
It's totally free almost everywhere. So you can there's free links to it online. There's also even a free audio. So it's kind of written in remember we used to read Shakespeare back in the day? It's kind of written in that kind of language, but honestly, is it 10 laws of money? And when you read it, you're like, oh my goodness. So once you can kind of get past the languaging, it's a great book to set the tone for this is how money works. And if I work within the system, then I can have the things that I want. So yeah, The Richest Man in Babylon. If you, like I said, you Google it, you'll find it for free.
To my list. Well, thank you, ladies. This was so special.
Yay.
Before we close things out, we have one last tradition that we always ask our community. And so everyone that's with us tonight would love for you guys to just take a moment to close your eyes. And, we believe that courage has ripple effects in our community. And when you do something that's expansive for you and you share it, you give others the permission and the potential to see it in themselves. And so I would love, everyone, all of the women in our community that are with us tonight, to just think of a moment in the past month, the past week, the past year that was really expansive for you, that you had to step out of your comfort zone and really flex your courageous muscles. And it doesn't matter if it's big or small, as long as it was meaningful for you. And so I would love everyone to take that moment and share it with us, because we want to celebrate you all, everyone that's with us tonight. We have 3 incredible mentors, but all women are of worth and value. So would love for you guys to share just that moment that you thought of with everyone, so we can take a moment to celebrate you.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I know some of my women in my community are probably watching tonight, and I just want to say that they've made so many strides, like over the last few months, over the last few years. And I'm just so proud of them. But more than me being proud of them, I'm so grateful that they have taken just action on their life in general, because finances, money is just about taking action with your life and about what you want to move towards. So if they're watching and you're in my community, Marsha loves you. I'm so proud of you, girls.
The use that we have is sat down with my husband in preparation for this call to take a hard look at our finances and our debt, which is something I've been really scared to do. But this call helped me push to finally get our finances in check, and I'm excited to put tips. That is a big deal, especially with a financial partner. Good for you.
Yeah,
that's big.
I sent Matt to all my loved ones to keep them safe. Yeah. Planning on buying my new home in November of 2019, or buying my new home in November of 2019.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Building my emergency fund and hitting my target date. Amen. I have educated myself on finances during furlough, continuing to donate to charity, even on a small scale, to remind myself that I can afford it. Ooh, that's powerful.
That's good.
Just purchased my first home. Congrats, Brittany. That's big. We're working towards that too. Quitting a job that I had once loved that became toxic. That's so important. Good for you for trusting in your worth and moving forward there. Providing free coaching to some folks and picked up a new paying client. Amazing. Automating my savings outright from my payroll.
Yes, that is key.
Yes, it is.
Paying for a stranger's groceries after feeling blessed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's good inspiration. Paying off my house, my credit card, and student loans.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
Paying off all my card except for 2, and it is working towards it. That's great. Put her stimulus check into savings and hasn't touched it yet. Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, you guys, this is great. So thank you all so much.
That's good.
Yeah, thank
really
you.
good.
Thank
That's
you
wonderful.
For such a special evening, and congrats to everyone. So thank you for being here. Be on the lookout for more events. Sign up for our emails, because that's where you'll get the latest information. And thank you all. This was so informative and also just so inspiring. So I really appreciate
and thank you, Megan. Thank you for doing this, Megan.
And Megan, can we just share where they can be? Because I see some people asking, like, what's Marsha's at? Can we just share where they can find us, like on social?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be sending over kind of post-event show notes, if you will, in an event email tomorrow. So I'll make sure to link everyone's websites, Instagram handles, and then also want to get information from you guys on where to look for like high yield savings accounts and some of the questions we weren't able to dig into. So thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your Monday.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in.